In the early years of the Pacific War, Japanese pilots ruled the skies. Their aircraft, the Mitsubishi A6M Zero, was a marvel of engineering that stunned Allied forces with its agility, speed, and deadly precision. Lightly built and designed for maximum maneuverability, the Zero could outturn and outclimb almost any opponent it faced. It became a symbol of Japan's air power, a machine that carried the empire's expansion across the Pacific from Pearl Harbor to the Coral Sea. But as the war dragged on, the United States was learning, adapting, and building something that would change the balance of air combat forever. Out of the Grumman factory came the F6F Hellcat, a rugged and powerful fighter built specifically to defeat the Zero. It was larger, heavier, and stronger, powered by a roaring Pratt and Whitney double Wasp engine that could tear through the sky at nearly 400 miles per hour. Unlike the fragile Zero, the Hellcat could take hits and keep flying. Its cockpit was protected by armor, its fuel tanks were self-sealing, and its 6 Browning machine guns could shred through even the most skilled enemy pilots' defenses. The first real encounters between Hellcats and Zeros took place in the skies over the Central Pacific in 1943. The Americans had studied every weakness of the Japanese fighter. They learned never to try to turn with a Zero, but to dive and climb, using the Hellcat's weight and power to dictate the fight. On one fateful day, a 7-minute dogfight captured everything that made these two planes the embodiment of their nations. The Hellcat represented American industry and adaptability, a brute force machine built for survival and victory. The Zero represented precision, tradition, and the daring spirit of Japan's aviators. When they met, the sky became a chessboard of death. The Hellcat's pilot used altitude and patience, staying just out of reach of the Zero twisted below, waiting for a mistake. When the Japanese pilot pulled too hard in a climb, the heavier Hellcat dove in with terrifying speed, closing the gap in seconds. The air was filled with the roar of engines and the sharp rattle of machine guns. Tracers streaked through the sky, and the Zero began to burn, its pilot fighting gravity and flames before plunging into the sea. That dogfight became more than a single victory. It marked the moment the tide began to turn. The Zero, once feared as untouchable, was now outclassed. American pilots in Hellcats went on to dominate every major air battle that followed, from the Marianas to the Philippines. At the Battle of the Philippine Sea, hundreds of Hellcats took off to intercept a massive wave of Japanese planes. The result was what pilots later called the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Nearly 400 Japanese aircraft were destroyed in a single day, while the Hellcats lost only a handful. The numbers told the story clearly. For every American Hellcat lost, 19 enemy planes were destroyed. No other fighter in history would achieve such dominance in such a short time. The reason was not just the machine, but the men behind it. American pilots were now flying aircraft that matched their courage with reliability. They trusted the Hellcat to bring them home even when riddled with bullets, engines smoking, wings torn. The Hellcat's success was not accidental. It was the product of lessons learned in blood. Every encounter with the Zero in the early years of the war had taught American engineers something new. They built thicker armor, added stronger wings, and made sure the fighter could absorb damage and still return to its carrier. The result was a plane that could be mass-produced quickly and maintained easily aboard ships scattered across the Pacific. Meanwhile, Japan struggled to replace lost pilots and aircraft. Their factories could not match the output of American industry, and their new designs came too late. The once dominant Zero became obsolete, forced into desperate kamikaze attacks as the war neared its end. In contrast, the Hellcat grew stronger with each version, its pilots more experienced, its tactics refined through countless missions over ocean and island jungles. Every clash between the Hellcat and the Zero told the same story in miniature. The Zero would twist and turn, trying to draw the heavier American fighter into a turning battle. The Hellcat pilot would refuse the bait, climbing high, using energy tactics, then diving in with a burst of speed and firepower. In seconds, the fight would be over. Many Japanese pilots never even saw the attack coming. The Hellcat was not the most beautiful or graceful plane in the war, but it was brutally effective. It was the flying equivalent of American Resolve, built not for elegance, but for victory. It could launch from carriers in rough seas, absorb punishment that would destroy other fighters, and still find its way home to fight again the next day. The Zero, on the other hand, remained a symbol of a bygone era. It was a pilot's plane, demanding skill, finesse, and courage. In the hands of a veteran, it could still be deadly, but by 1944, those veterans were gone, replaced by inexperienced pilots with little training and few hours in the cockpit. The new pilots were thrown into impossible battles against better machines and better prepared opponents. As the Hellcat reigned over the Pacific, the Zero became a ghost of its former self, a relic of Japan's early war glory. The transition was complete by the time American bombers reached Japan's home islands. The once mighty Imperial Navy's air arm was broken, and the Hellcat had played the largest role in that defeat. Throughout the war, the Hellcat was more than just a fighter. It was a guardian for the fleets, an escort for bombers, and a hunter that cleared the skies ahead of every major invasion. Pilots often spoke of its forgiving nature, how it could take rough landings, survive combat damage, and still perform. In a theater defined by vast distances, unpredictable weather, and relentless combat, reliability was as important as firepower. The Hellcat gave its pilots both. The Zero could still outmaneuver it in certain situations, but the days when that mattered were over. The American pilots dictated the fights now. They had radar, better communication, and numerical superiority. Each engagement widened the gap until Japan's Air Force was fighting a losing battle on every front. By the end of World War II, more than 12,000 Hellcats had been built. They had destroyed over 5,000 enemy aircraft, a record that would stand unmatched. The Hellcat's design would influence post-war aircraft and remain in service 4 years after peace returned. Its creation was a testament to the power of learning, adaptation, and sheer industrial strength. The Zero, once feared and admired, faded into history as a reminder of how quickly innovation could shift the balance of war. The 7-minute dogfight between the Hellcat and the Zero was not just a clash of machines. It was the moment one era ended and another began. From that point forward, the Pacific skies belonged to the United States, and the Hellcat's roar became the sound of victory echoing across the ocean.